All right. So, how many people do ask you these days to yell at them?
Well, it's funny because I don't, I'm not getting a lot of people asking me specifically to yell at them. I have gotten a few cameo requests, but it's like hyping people up and like calling them terrible names, but it's funny. It's weird though, because I'm not a drill instructor, like I'm an actor. And even when we were filming, people on the crew would come up to me and they would be like, so like, how long did you serve in the military? I'm like, I'm a coward. I am not, and I was never served in I went to art school. I love movies, as you can see. But yeah, so it's funny because I've been allergic to social media like most of my career, which has probably been a detriment to me. I've been in great stuff and I just never promoted it. And then this did so well, and it was the kind of thing that's fun. Like it's fun to make up these stupid names, and it's fun to put on this kind of crazy drill instructor hat and like be stupid and yell, and people love it. And I'm like, okay, this is actually something I could do to like promote the show and to promote other stuff and gain followers and have fun doing it and not feel like a total cheese who's out here, just being like, hey everybody, what's up? Like I just hate
Yeah.
that stuff. So
You play Sergeant Howard in Boots. How did this character find you?
well, like a lot of things, I just auditioned for it, but I think actually this one was a little different. I'd played a drill instructor in a movie called The Inspection, which has a similar themes to it for sure. It was Elegance Bratton's story, who had a similar experience of being a young gay man going into the military during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and having to hide his experience as well. But that wasn't so much about the themes of the military and hiding your homosexuality as much as it was just kind of getting through it and escaping the unfortunate circumstances he had kind of grown up in. But it is similar with Greg Cope White's story in this on Boots. And I had played a similar part in that, but that was more of an art film, and it was all from the perspective of his character. So you didn't see as much of the boot camp and as much of the people. But when I was on it, it was a similar thing where they just found out that I could sort of like improv pretty well in this world and make up a lot
Mhm.
of stuff. And they would just kind of they would wind me up and let me go. And they were like, oh my gosh, this is really good. And Andy Parker, the showrunner on Boots, had seen me in that. And so they brought me in for this part. And I had to go through a bunch of different auditions. And it was funny because I think some people, maybe the networks, they're just not familiar with boot camp. And they were like, why is he yelling so much? Like he screams a lot. Why is he screaming? And it's like, well, that's who these guys are. And what I am proud of with with Howitt and the inspection is the people I get the most love from, honestly, are people that served in the military and had a drill instructor because they're like, oh my gosh, you remind me so much of drill instructor X, right? And I get that a lot, so it means a lot. And I hope I don't get pigeonholed as only drill instructor, but it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's a lot of fun screaming at these guys. It's a blast.
What kind of backstory were you given on Howard, or did you create one for him?
It was weird. I mean, it was sort of bits. I wasn't given much of a backstory. I just sort of took elements from the script. And for me, Howitt was more a guy that's like what people see. It's like, oh, how it's so mean. It's like, no, I'm not even hitting the level of like what these guys do in reality. Like you watch the video of what these guys are at, and I mean, you can't even understand when they're screaming. Sometimes they're just going, ah, they're just screaming.
Yeah.
Like, and it's crazy. And so for me, it was like, okay, well, what's a fun way to play with this? Because Howard is a bit of a device for the show where he can ease the tension, he can bring the comedy, he can keep the atmosphere. But then as a person, it's like, I kind of like playing with the idea that Howitt has never been to war, which you see a little bit of the scene
Yeah.
with Max's character, where it's like he's kind of envious of these guys who really did get to go off and kind of be G.I. Joe, right? He isn't that. He just pretty much stayed in boot camp and just transitioned into being a drill instructor, which, by the way, is insane, exhausting work. And I'm very grateful to all of those
Yeah,
who
I'm
serve
sure.
as drill instructors because without them, you don't get a tough and strong a military that can protect us and protect our freedom. So I really do respect them. They have crazy schedules. They're exhausted. They ruin their voices. It's insane what these people do and put themselves through. But I like the idea that how it like really just loved the brotherhood and loved the brotherhood of boot camp and then had to isn't a killer. Like I don't know if how it gets put in war if he's actually able to kill someone or if he does, I think it would really mess him up. And so I
We'll get
like
to
that he
that
overcompensates, you know, like
because
he,
because of what happened with, the recruit he had. Maybe it would mess him up, knowing what happened to him. And then, he probably at war, I think it would, was it wouldn't with if it didn't happen with Ochoa. I mean, if it did happen, like it messed him up with Ochoa, then certainly I think war would have been a little too heavy for Howard, no matter what facade he puts on.
yeah, and I think Howard's kind of a lonely guy. I don't think Howard has much of a life outside of this. I don't think he has a girlfriend. I don't think like I think how I would really always love to see like Howard's world. I think Howard's life sort of is boot camp and he loves it. And he also and he sees like his brothers, you know, Cedric's character, Sergeant McKinnon, you know, sees him with his family and it's like when he's proud of him, he's like, "Hey, go home, like go see that."
Mhm.
He loves the brotherhood and he loves the people within it, but he doesn't really have any of that outside of the Marine Corps itself, which I think for a lot of people that are in the Marine Corps, there's a reason it becomes their identity because it's the thing that gave them a purpose and a focus in
He
life.
stands up
And
for Cedric's character, his McKinnon is because he said, I let him go because his wife was giving birth, and so that's why you were serving double duty at the time, like double schedule, back to backs at the same time. So
yeah.
there is this brotherhood, certainly because you are, in the Marines together, but I think also that was a friend thing to do.
Yeah, Howard's a good guy. Howard's a misogynist, and but he's also, I think the thing with Howard is he's easily manipulated to some degree, where he's just putting on the things that he thinks will get him accepted, right? Like the bit when he's, coming after the fact that they have a female CO.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that comes from a place of insecurity and wanting to fit in with Rambo because he makes an assumption
He
that
served. He's
that
got the
Max's character, yeah,
silver
that he
medal.
yeah, the men don't listen to women and that we're this and these kind of old school values that he equates with what it is to be a Marine, which this other guy doesn't, and who is the thing that he kind of dreams of being on some level. Um, I think I don't know how much of how its beliefs when it come to that sort of stuff really are ingrained in any real like strong feeling about that subject as much as it is about being accepted by who he wants to be accepted by and what he thinks masculinity is supposed to look like. And I think because of that, Howard's sort of finding his way. And the other thing I love about Howard and his screaming, I love how funny he is. Because I think if you can be funny, I think if you're funny generally, that can show a great deal of empathy and understanding of others. And it's your way of sort of coping, but it really shows a great intelligence. And it's, class clowns often aren't dumb. They just are often fearful, or insecure. And they overcompensate by being the clown. And I think a lot of that applies to Howitt.
Well, those were some incredible DI idioms that you created. I think my favorite was cat with no legs in the pool, swim like you're
Yeah, I
Captain.
don't get
Where do these? I know they're improv and things like that, but did they give you any like guidance? Did they just let you be Nicholas in those moments and scream
yeah,
whatever?
they kind of well, and again, it's not Nicholas, it's not Nick. Let me make that clear. This is definitely like Howitt and like a character. But it was funny because when we did the screen test, And I wasn't quite sure how it was going to go because it's a Netflix show, and a lot of the stuff I say, there's plenty of improv that I have in the show, but there's also much that is scripted, and most of my longer scenes where there's real dialogue happening, that's all scripted and written by our wonderful writing staff that we had. But there was a thing on during the camera test where in front of all the executives and the showrunners and everyone. And they came in and we had the background actors, some of them, and they had me come in and they were like, "Hey Nick, just like do like a crazy drill instructor thing." And I don't think they knew that I'd done this before, or maybe they did. I don't know. But I was sort of like put on the spot. And it's a network test. Everyone there from the different networks are there, and you don't want to get fired. And so I just kind of started riffing. And we had some of the actual cast was there too, and I just started riffing, and I came up with some great stuff on the spot. I was pretty happy with myself, and I came up with a lot of funny stuff, and I got done, and pretty much everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, can you do that all the time?" And I was like, I can try. And so what I did, it was sort of my thing because how it wasn't a ton on the page. When I would be hanging around or my trailer, I would just I would go on like drill instructor Reddit boards and I would find funny things there. But then I would also just think of kind of funny insults, just stupid stuff that would pop up in my mind. And I would just you note list that goes on and on and on. I mean, it's pages and pages and pages. I'll give you a quick little scroll, but it just kind of you can't see this, but anyways, it goes on for days. And I would just kind of pull out my notepad and like I would go, let me try to find one that isn't too bad. I would say, oh, wet wipes, like I have wet wipes here. That's one. Wang washers, that's,
Took
whatever.
little
And I
notes
would
of
like
things
go,
that would
okay, that's a
inspire
fun
you.
one. Yeah, I would have notes, and then before the take, I would look and I'd pick out four or five, and then I'd go out into the thing. And if one popped into my head and it was an appropriate moment, I would just yell it at somebody or work it into a scene. And the network kind of seemed to like it, and everyone was like, "Yeah, keep doing you, and we'll use it." And a lot of my ADR ended up being improv, and it was fun.
Since you are a trained actor, did you know how to prepare for straining your voice that hard, or did you just, accidentally blow it out while you're doing this?
No, I think no, it's a good question because being a trained actor saved me on this. Like some of the actors came on and I went to the North Carolina School of the Arts and like so I had very good vocal training from a young age. And so even though I'm not, my voice teachers would be like, he's so bad. I definitely learned a lot. And what I learned playing this part and what I knew from the inspection was I have to put Howitt. I speak very chesty, like I'm down here when I speak. But as Howitt, I put him up in the nasal cavity because if you try to do the frog voice, like if you do the voice where you're here and you're screaming like this, you can't shoot a television show like that. You'll burn your voice out. I
That's
mean,
why I was asking. Yeah.
you'll burn it out in an hour, much less like, cool, I got to shoot for 8 hours today and we're doing this for 6 months. Like, you don't stand a chance. You have to save yourself. And my role is constant screaming. So I would put it up in my nasal cavity and I would pitch it forward and then just bring all the intensity. But I always had a lot of breath support and it was always sitting in an open cavity. So I was never living in my voice or in my throat, I should say, or my voice box. And because of that, I didn't lose my voice once filming it, which I was really grateful for.
Okay. So the scene with Ochoa, I have to ask first, when it comes to that, there was a lot of talk after his death about whether your race, how it is racist. What are your thoughts on that?
It's
Not the
really interesting.
talk about whether you think how it had any racial implications with what he was doing.
I mean, listen, I think how it's definitely probably a little racist on some level, just based off his background and the year that it is and the time in which he grew up. I mean, to think that Howard doesn't have any racism in him, and by the way, the fact that to think that pretty much everyone in that boot camp doesn't have some racism in them, I think is pretty would be very Pollyanna-ish to believe. But what I will say that I think is true about Howitt, and I think is unfair, and I get it from the recruit's point of view. I think Howitt's actually a very easy target. You know, it's really easy to come at the Southern white guy who is the kill hat because there's different jobs for the drill instructors, and Howitt is the kill hat. And the kill hat is there to constantly be crazy and on you and insult you and say the worst things. And I mean, we really had to reel it back from what the reality would have been in terms of the things that I would have been saying in that era. You know, I tried to never cross the lines in terms of saying real offensive slurs or anything like that. But I'm sure in reality, how it would have been saying all those things. But I think the one thing that I do love, and our military advisors would say this all the time, and it's true, is that, there isn't black, white, yellow, red, whatever in the Marine Corps. There's only
Mhm.
green, right? They would say that a lot. Like, once you're in here, we're gonna rip you for being a million different things. And yeah, there's probably some racist jerk in here who's gonna do whatever. But once you're in, you're in. And we just look at you as green, and there's this weird brotherhood thing. And I think going back to what I said before about Howitt, I think Howitt, the brotherhood is the most important thing. And I think for whatever racism there that may exist within Howitt, I think Howitt probably struggles with that. I think Howitt probably it can be maybe a gut reaction or maybe things come out of his mouth, but I think if you actually pressed him on it, he wouldn't be able to back it up and he wouldn't feel great about it and he probably wouldn't be proud about it. I mean, I think the one thing that holds true with bigotry overall is it often comes from a place of fear. It often comes from a place of self-loathing. And it often comes from a place that is sitting on very shaky ground. So if you're confronted like, hey, are you a bigot or a racist? If someone's faced with the fact that people view them in that way, most people, unless you're just a psychopath or a Klans member, just an outward bigot, most people are going to go, oh no, I'm not. Like, even if their behavior is. And then it opens up a bunch of questions for them, an opportunity for them to change, which I think can be wonderful. But no, I mean, that's a long way of saying, in terms of that particular circumstance, it wasn't that Howitt was being bigoted. I think, if anything, Howitt was starting to love Ochoa, and he was just treating Ochoa like he would his best friend. Like, he's going to make the same joke about his wife getting, having sex with
Of course,
Jody.
of course. But I
He's
mean,
going to say that
how
same
could
joke to
he?
his
How
best
could he
buddy.
know? How could he know in that
How could he
moment?
know? Yeah, you know.
But I think that was, like a typical thing you would say. Like, you see this kid, his face is crestfallen, and you'd be like, "Why do you look sad?" Your wife's probably. How would he know? But I think he sort of tries to make up for it in how he treats Santos. He saw that was um, it how I mean, I think it hurt him so badly that when he gives Santos permission to call his daughter, he heard, Santos saying, like, "Oh, my daughter is having these nightmares, and I just want to tell her that she, like, it's not me." I think it wounded him to the point where he was like, okay, it wasn't a race thing for Santos at that point, or it didn't seem like race was taken out of everything at that point, and he was just doing something for a dad.
I think it goes back to the point of I don't this I again if Howitt was like a true bigot, well then he would have done everything to make sure Santos didn't get that call, no matter what the guy thinks of him. I think again it points to the fact that it's not that Howitt's a bigot, it's that Howitt gets misinterpreted and he becomes an easy target for the recruits. But the truth of the matter is maybe that thing with Ochoa softened him. But I think the reality is that in his core, in his heart, Howitt's actually a good guy who loves his recruits and wants to see them succeed. And to your point, sees a father really struggling in a tough moment for their platoon. And he wants to be an example of like, hey, I may be a pain in the ass all day, every day, but look, there's more here than that. In the Marine Corps, we are a family. and we are going to look out for each other. And this is a great opportunity, I think, for Howard to show some humanity. And I was just so glad they wrote that scene. It's a small one, but I think it really matters for the arc of Howard and the relationship with all of them because
Yeah.
you really get to see where his heart lies, which is he's not a bad guy.
What were some of your personal favorite scenes to film, or ones maybe you're most proud of the work you put into it? Maybe it was getting popcorn knocked out of your hand and watching this poor kid exert himself way too far.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. As an actor, I sort of just show up and deliver on the day, and I try to, just do my best in each scene. And I don't, I don't view it in the same way. I don't know. I get asked this question. I never really have much of a good answer for it. But I really enjoyed. I don't know. I really enjoyed the whole experience of Howitt. I mean, just getting like, the fact that they let me write my own marching cadence. I kind of did. I wasn't happy with the one that they wrote. So in episode 5, when I'm calling that cadence, I wrote that. And I wrote like a whole cadence out that I was really funny. I was like, guys, I think Howitt would have a funnier cadence. Like, I want a fun one that the military could use, that like guys currently serving. And so I was really grateful that Jennifer and Andy and everyone were okay and like approved the cadence and let me do it, and then actually used it in the show. I didn't know if they would. Um, and so doing that day was something I wrote with everyone getting to sing this thing that actually it's funny and the whole cadence is longer and has some heart at the end of it that we don't really get to. But there was something that felt really I don't know, enriching about getting to do that. And then, just the days when they would really let me rip and run through these guys. I had a lot of fun with the Bowman brothers. It's so weird. There's a weird like roller coaster that I'm riding throughout his way of speaking that's a lot of fun that you don't get to do normally. Like if you watch me in Dark Winds in season 2, he's a very strange, quiet character. And I love playing with the way people speak and the way he speaks is so fun. It's just so fun to drop into that. And so some of those scenes, like when I'm yelling at them about being conjoined twins, and forcing them together, it's not that I was proud of it. I just had a lot of fun doing it. It's like it was fun to ride that like linguistic wave.
I asked Brandon about being tied together, and he was like, it was just terrible. Just terrible. Um, but those are some of the scenes that I think really prepared them for what it's like. And certainly, you don't know their family dynamics. You just know that one of them, they're brothers, and one of them's getting special treatment at home. And then, they're at each other's throat. So you have to make them into brothers again.
Yeah.
Why not tie them together with rope?
It's so funny. And like it was sad because Brandon and Blake were doing really beautiful work on that day and it was very emotional for them, but they can't say anything. And then I'm just getting to like rip through these hilarious lines and mess with them. And I think the thing too was exploring the physicality. There's like a way I always call it like playing with the frame when you act for film, where you're bringing a line here and then bringing it up and pulling it back and coming back in. There's a lot of technical stuff that can go into acting on camera that's a lot of fun and I enjoy. And he was even more fun because Howard's at like a 15 at all times. So I got
Yes.
to really like fully like be this thing that could play in this really aggressive like way and jump down and like crawl up on people uh that was probably the thing I was the most proud of is embodying it in my full body and like letting out because I have a lot of energy as you can tell and letting out like the rocket launcher like all day. It's fun.
What did you personally take away from your time working on this incredible series?
I just took away a lot of great relationships. I always try to make a lot of friends. The coolest thing for me that came out of this whole thing was I actually started a company with one of the line producers on the project, Brittany Fallow. She was working under Scott Hornbacher and Todd Lewis and doing a lot of the behind the scenes work that made that show go. And I would just watch her and the way the crew loved her, the way she would navigate the executives and the crew and the cast and everyone. And I was like, man, she knows how to do all the things I don't know how to do. And she is going to be everyone's boss in like 10 years. And I approached her about starting a production company. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I'm in." And we've been like at it now for a year. We've already made a couple of television pilots, and we're like developing a bunch of movies and other shows. And with along with our other partner Bridget Regan, who's a wonderful actor from Jane the
Yeah.
Virgin and things. She's like
Yeah.
my she's like my
The
sister. And
rookie.
yeah, exactly. The rookie. Yeah. So Picture Pool Productions is our company, and we use a lot of the crew. Our first project we did was this show we're making called Savage, and we used a bunch of the crew from Boots down in New Orleans, and I love that crew. And so outside of my relationships with the cast and writers and directors that I obviously love and respect, and I'm so grateful to know now, the crew and the team in New Orleans that were behind making that show were so incredible, and they've just become like family to me now. So that was the biggest takeaway is partnering up with Brittany and just kind of getting close with that entire crew because we all look at the cast often, but it's really the crew and the teams behind it and all the producers that really make this thing go. The actors just get to show up and have fun, whereas they're the ones really making it happen. So that's probably what I took the most away from it. And it's been a real blessing. And I'll always be grateful for Boots because without it, I wouldn't have Picture Pool Productions.
What would you like to say then to everyone who are fans and supporters of Boots who have come out of the woodworks? I mean, this show has been a juggernaut, especially since government kind of uh desanctioned it.
Thanks a lot, you big idiots. We appreciate you. Thank
The
you for
best
boosting our
endorsement
numbers through the
ever.
roof, you morons. I mean, listen, to the supporters, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, it has just been so cool. You never know. You make shows and sometimes they're real popular, oftentimes they're not. And you never know, how something's going to play. And this is one where you're like, how will this play? And I think it's a real testament to Andy and to Greg, Andy Parker and Greg Cope White and Jennifer Cecile and everyone who was behind this and made it go. That we've been able to toe the line. Something I'm really proud of is that yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of old Hegseth. I like to call him Peg Breath. I don't know if you have to block that out. I apologize, but old Peg Breath. We appreciate his publicity because all publicity is good publicity. But I love that we made him mad over here. And then one of these reviewers I read who clearly like doesn't like the military and is very turned off by all things military was like they're too reverent about the military. There's too much love shown to there's too much like American pride here. And I was like, cool. So you're like super crazy liberal over here. And then these crazy right wingers way, way, way over here, they're pissed off. So if we got all you guys pissed off, that means we're doing something right because all of us regular people in the middle who are just like trying to support our neighbors and love our neighbors as thyselves and try to like, be decent people and live by the golden rule and show respect to everyone, even if they're kind of different than us. We all seem to like this show. And I think it's beautiful. And so to anyone who resonates with the stories on this show, like thank you for your support. We're so glad we can help tell your story. And just know that like if you watch this and you think, man, I wish more people felt this way, hey, millions of people clearly do. And I'm just really grateful and proud because I'm a straight man, but I have a lot of gay friends and trans friends and family who I support. And what I thought was really cool about the messaging on this too, one of our military advisors who voted for Trump, who's would consider himself a conservative. I asked him, I said, "Hey buddy, how do you feel about the, don't ask, don't tell and all that?" And he goes, I think it's none of my business. And I think some of the best soldiers I've ever come across were gay, and I don't have a problem with it. And I don't know why anyone else does either. It doesn't affect us as long as they can be, efficient soldiers. That's all that matters. And because it really is about merit at the end of the day. All this stuff we want to make about identity, that's all nonsense. That's people's personal business. When it comes to us acting as a society and as a country and as neighbors, it's really about how can we help each other and be a better society. And I think the show supports that. And so I appreciate people loving that about the show.
I mean, half of the people I saw writing those articles didn't seem like they had even watched the show because the sexuality is sort of it's there, but that's also not necessarily the main thing you take away from it. It's not like shoved in your face. I think they just heard it was like someone who was gay trying to be a Marine, and that's like all they heard, and that might have been what all Pete heard or was told about the show. Because if you watch it, there's heart, there's brotherhood, like maybe 10%, 20% is that the focus. It's about him becoming a man and him finding confidence. It's about him loving himself and being accepting of himself more than it is, hey, here's this controversy. We don't even see that until, Max's character steps out of line a little bit at the end, and that's as far as it goes. But I think this is a beautiful story of friendship, and I think it's a great story about what people go through to be a Marine. He's talking about going back to the old ways of being a soldier and things like that. This is that time. You're
Yeah.
highlighting that time that he's trying to get people to go back to.
Well, and I think it also speaks to people's ignorance, including Pete Hegseth and his department, about what the Marine Corps and the military actually looks like in terms of its entire scope. Yeah, you can focus in on a sliver of an idea of something that, by the way, that man never actually served in the Marine Corps. I would just like to point that out. And what we had on set, another one of our military advisors who's also a conservative guy, also voted for Trump. One of his best friends went through what Max went through, and he was disgusted by it. And he doesn't support these same policies that are trying to run these guys out of the military. Because the truth about the Marine Corps, especially today and going back, is it's not easy. No one wants to go through this. I certainly didn't want to go through it. And so the people that do and they dedicate their lives to it, no matter what part of life they come from. I mean, you have Kieran's character being a guy who's facing jail time. It's like you have all these different people from all these different walks of life. And for me as an American, I'm just grateful for those who do decide to, make that their focus and what they're going to pursue in their lives, because it allows me to get to pursue all these other things. And we shouldn't be trying to push people that want to, serve their country. We shouldn't be pushing them away. We should be welcoming in, because we need as many of those individuals as possible to keep our country safe. And so I just, I hope that people do watch the show, because I think it'll soften some hearts. Because, like I said before, it's real easy to demonize something without a face, or to demonize an idea. It's a lot harder when you're faced with like a human and a real story and people that aren't bad people, and just spend a little time around them, to then go, oh, villain. It's like, no, that's just a guy who is looking for something to do with his life, and we're lucky enough that he wants to make the Marine Corps that thing. And trust me, drill instructors will make them tough. Like, drill instructors will make them strong and mean and angry and ready to do a very difficult job. Leave that up to the great drill instructors. We don't have to weed them out. The drill instructors will weed out the people that can't make it. That's what drill instructors are there for.
Okay, well, we'll see if Cameron can kill next season.
We will. I don't know.
We'll see what kind of
Well,
there you go. We'll see what if he's able to do your favorite word. Well, I guess Max's favorite word. So
he
let's say
loves
it was
kill.
first.
Yeah. I think my
His first child might be named Kill at some point.
favorite word was Happy Meal. Yeah, I just thought they used Happy Meal and pig-shaped marshmallow when I was yelling at Blake. Those came out on the day. And those I'm glad those stuck. Blake would just be dying like laughing, trying not to laugh when I would do it.